INUKA literally means to rise up. To us, it is also synonymous with a journey. A wholesome journey to resource and capacity build young people at the front lines of nature and climate emergencies with the skills, knowledge, finances, networks, and the opportunity to test, implement, communicate and scale their nature-based solutions, NbS, across landscapes.
So the first module is, of course, NbS 101, Nature-Based Solutions 101, what this is, why it exists in the first place, and by who. So the main objective of this lesson is to help us understand the role of nature-based solutions for climate action. We understand
Nature-based solutions is the core pillar on which the INUKA project stands. At the onset of our field visits, we sought to lay a foundation on NbS, its history, definition, and interventions.
So nature-based solutions, according to IUCN definition, are actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural and modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously benefiting people and nature. And now in 2021, when UNIA was happening in Nairobi, UNIA 5.2. 5.2 basically just means it was the second meeting of the 5th session of the United Environmental Assembly.
INUKA serves as a continuation of the critically important work on NbS started by the NbS Youth Coalition, that is, Youth for Nature, GYBN, and Yango.
I think after the 2015 climate COP, the presence of the youth and the zeal of the youth, and then the call of the youth to be part of negotiations became very strong. And that is when we had conversations with the UNFCCC, and we were actually made, an official constituency. So we normally try to put together young people in what we call the Conference of Youth every year, just a week before this event, that's a COP, to try and put together a global youth statement to present to COP as in our position and how we can influence, climate change decisions.
Informed by a For Youth by Youth survey that gathered the ideas, perspectives, and understanding about NbS from youth around the world, the coalition published the first of its kind global youth position statement on NbS as a resource to support their nature and climate advocacy efforts globally. This was done to further connect youth across biodiversity and climate movements, and to help us create spaces for the youth within the global nature and climate decision making.
So what we ended up doing is we wanted to put together this global youth statement, and we wanted to do this in a way that was inclusive as possible and bringing in as many youth voices, not just from the staff members or the direct volunteers of our 3 groups, but bringing together larger youth communities that we represent and are also a part of.
INUKA model is predicated on experiential learning, where youth groups representing different ecosystems get to visit each other and experience firsthand what NbS interventions the groups are practicing, how they are implementing them, and also get to cross-share knowledge. In our pilot project, we have been able to take the journey of NbS to 4 regions across Kenya and learn their various NbS interventions.
So like mitigation, we plant trees to ensure that we don't have to deal with drought again.
Our first field trip was in Mombasa. There we had an introduction to what NbS is. I could say initially I had superficial knowledge of what NbS is. I think I had the idea, but I didn't have the concrete way to put the idea. I couldn't pitch or teach anybody about the idea. But I can just summarize NbS as nature and people as one. Nature and people working together, with people not being central but being part of nature, and using nature to find solutions to people's problems and also nature's problems.
So down at Big Ship Mombasa, and a truckload of experiences here. So excited to learn what Big Ship are doing in terms of restoration.
Mwaka wa 98 kulinyesha mvua kubwa sana El Nino, ambayo iliharibu sana, mbali na kukatwa na wanajamii, lakini iliharibu mikoko mingi sana, ambayo hata huu ambao tumesimama hapa, ambayo ni moja ile mikoko ambayo ilikuwa very much common. Hiyo ndio iliweza kuondolewa haraka sana na mvua, na kupitia kwa hali hiyo basi tukaona kwamba ni vyema ya kwamba tuweze kuungana na kujishirikisha hasa kwa ajili ya kurudisha mazingira hii.
Well, so these are different species, the ones that tunafanya restoration. This is RM, the Rhizophora mucronata. As you can see, it's so big, right? Hii ndo ile mti ikikuwa inakuwa mbio sana, inakuwa kwa mud, you know, and it is red mangroves. Yeah, na hii ndo inapendwa sana na community.
Tulikuwa na kama eka 5 mwanzo ambazo tulianza kuzipanda na hizo tukazijaza, na sasa hata ukitembea huko mahali utashangaa, manake mikoko imekuwa mikubwa, na tukaona ni tuendelee, manake mikoko kwetu sasa imekuwa ni faida. Faida ya kwanza ni kuwa tunapata samaki. Faida ya pili, tunapumua hewa safi, sababu mkoko unatusafishia ile hewa mbaya, mkoko inasafisha na tunapumua hewa safi.
NAPO is working on FMNR, Farmer Managed Natural Regeneration, as a way of dryland restoration technique, whereby we introduce and train our community on how to conserve and restore nature through a program called RAMAT, where basically people are taught and trained on how to manage and protect the naturally growing species, just to ensure that we have the tree cover in our dryland areas.
Tree planting in itself is quite useful, but we need to also consider the trees that are already regenerating in the landscapes. These trees, like the acacias, the Acacia totilis, the Acacia xanthophyllea, the croton, these are trees that are already coming up in the landscape. And because they've already grown in the landscape, they're among the strongest species in that landscape. They've already adapted to that landscape. So it's much easier and less costly to actually protect the tree seedlings, the trees that are coming up naturally, than it is to plant.
Nature and People is one, are our host organizations here, and ideally they are working with the local communities, mostly comprising elders, women and children, also youth, on what different interventions they can put in place to ensure that even in a landscape like this that is mostly water deprived, how do we come together and already take care of what is existing? And then for areas that are exposed or have availability of waters, how do we then still revitalize and restore by planting some of the seedlings that are viable to these conditions? So we've been able to explore, study, tour some of the sites that this FMNR is happening, and actually see it practically, what it means for them to actually take care, adopt of an ecosystem and manage it to the point of succession.
At Friends of Ondiri, the nature-based solutions that we are handling is we are working towards restoring a natural ecosystem, wetland ecosystem that has been facing many challenges, including encroachment and degradation. So through INUKA project, we have been able to establish a botanic garden that has worked as a collection of indigenous species that initially were native of the region but no longer exist. So bringing them back to their original ecosystem and helping them to bring back the biodiversity that has been facing challenges, and in the long run, of course, fighting climate change.
Beyond normal capacity building, we have also connected the youth with mentors who've had the wealth of experience navigating and restoring landscape to share with other youth their experiences and best practices, which in turn helps them improve their initiatives, ensuring that our journey with INUKA is not just about learning, but about empowerment, action, and impact.
There are a lot of challenges that we are facing, and one is on capacity. We have been working in the marine conservation space for the longest time, and we didn't know some of the opportunity that we can tap into that are actually nature-based solutions. So if more trainings on nature-based solutions can be made, we will be able to expand and to scale up our initiative.
We were doing NbS, but we didn't know we were doing NbS. So we couldn't sell the idea to the community, because NbS is an idea that has been there since long time ago, but since we didn't have the scientific jargons for it and the community has its own definition for the NbS stuff, we couldn't have a consensus.
There's a lot that we are doing, but we get limited funding, or most of the fundings are project-based because we get a fund, it funds a small portion of a project, it ends, and we have again to struggle looking for more resources to sustain the project.
I am deeply honored to participate in this discussion. This summit is a crucial step to prepare the upcoming COP28 meeting and to make sure that Africa's voice resonates around the world, and that Africa's priorities as a continent that is most affected by climate change.
To the different stakeholders, for the government, I think we need a good policy framework. We need to put a lot of focus on environmental education. As someone who works with schools, I know environmental education is key for behavior change. And as long as we don't change our behaviors, things will remain the same way. You cannot convince someone to stop littering unless they understand why. Because I have graduated with a degree in environmental planning and management, but it was until I came to INUKA that I could actually be able to explain NbS to someone in the grassroots community, because there's so much skewed definitions of the word. So I think the government and the private stakeholders, NGOs, really need to focus on capacity building people to understand what NbS is, and we also need to listen to communities, because this is a concept that has been there for the longest time, so we need to be able to bridge that gap, where when we go to communities, we just don't focus on the how, we also focus on the why. Let them understand why we are doing what we are doing, so that when it comes to the how, some of the ideas could come from them. Sometimes we think we are providing solutions to communities, and the truth of the matter is they already have solutions. It's just that you're having a jargon for the problem that they already understand.
Personally, I feel like the future of NbS is on agriculture, like NbS for livelihood, because NbS has been used to provide, livelihood sources in terms of food security, in terms of economic and income generation. I feel like NbS is also going to be the solution to create climate resilience for community and also restore the ecosystems back. It's a holistic approach on nature-based solution that does not only, cater for one need.
Now that we are aware of the conversations around biodiversity and NbS best practices, this begs a number of questions. As a young person, how can you rise to the challenge of climate and nature emergencies, considering the unique challenges in your region? How can you contribute to nature-based solutions in your local community? As donors and partners, how can you support and enhance NbS initiatives and create sustainable impact? How can we all share our knowledge and build resilient nature-based economies? And finally, how can we scale nature-based solutions that transform our landscapes and communities? This, our viewers, is the question. Stay tuned for next episode and get to learn about INUKA's efforts to foster sustainable livelihoods and youth leadership.
Thank you.